The best time of your life is now. That's not just a motivational slogan to repeat in front of the mirror, but a deep psychological truth that Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and pioneer of analytical psychology, understood at the core of his work. In this video, we are going to explore how Jung's teachings show us that the present moment is the true foundation of our growth, our happiness, and our potential. We will talk about why people so often miss this truth by living in the past or worrying about the future, how the unconscious mind keeps us trapped in cycles of regret or anticipation, and what it means to integrate our shadow so we can fully experience the richness of life as it unfolds. We'll reflect on the danger of waiting for the perfect time to live, the illusion of control that keeps us chasing certainty, and the way Jung believed individuation, the process of becoming whole, can only happen when you embrace the reality of now. Along the way, we'll discuss stories and examples that highlight what it means to awaken to the present, how relationships change when you start living this way, and why even suffering has meaning when we face it instead of avoiding it. By the end of this journey, you will see why Jung would insist that your best time is not hidden somewhere in the future, nor preserved in a past you can't return to. It is here, right where you are, in this moment you're listening. We all know the temptation of imagining life differently. Maybe you've told yourself, I'll be happy once I get that job, once I find the right partner, once I move to that new city, once I make enough money. Or maybe you've replayed old memories, believing the best time already passed, back when you were younger, freer, or before certain mistakes were made. This constant drifting between what was and what might be creates a strange absence. Life slips by while we're busy waiting. Jung warned about this tendency, pointing out that our psyche holds onto unresolved parts of our past through the unconscious, projecting them onto the future, creating illusions that keep us from actually living. The truth is that nothing exists outside the present moment, but most people only realize this when they face a crisis, when the future they imagine never comes, or when the past they idealized proves impossible to relive. When Jung spoke of individuation, he described it as a journey toward wholeness, and wholeness requires presence. If you're split between mourning yesterday and fearing tomorrow, your energy is scattered, your mind fragmented. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Looking inside means becoming aware of where your attention is and realizing that your inner world is always happening now, no matter what memory you're visiting or what fantasy you're projecting. You cannot individuate if you are not rooted in the living experience of your own existence as it unfolds moment by moment. The best time of your life is now, because now is the only time you can actually shape, understand, and experience. Consider for a moment how much of your thought life is spent in time travel. You may wake up in the morning thinking about yesterday's mistakes or disappointments. You might spend the day anxious about what tomorrow requires. But what about today? Jung believed that the psyche has a tendency to avoid the present because the present is real, it's tangible, unavoidable, and sometimes uncomfortable. Our fantasies about the past and future can feel safer, more controllable, but they rob us of vitality. To face now is to face yourself as you are, with your flaws, your strengths, your contradictions, your pain, and your potential. That's why Jung saw the acceptance of now as such a powerful psychological act. It is the courage to be conscious. But let's be honest, it's not easy. We are conditioned to live otherwise. Society constantly pushes us toward a future we don't yet have, promising happiness if we consume more, achieve more, or change more. At the same time, nostalgia sells us the idea that happiness was back then, in childhood, in simpler times, in our golden youth. Both directions seduce us because they are illusions we can escape into. Jung, however, asked us to question these illusions. He believed that the psyche hides unresolved conflicts and desires in these fantasies, making us believe we are chasing a better time when in fact we are avoiding the present challenges that could make us whole. To live now means to confront those challenges, to stop waiting for ideal conditions, and realize that your life has already begun. Think about the shadow, one of Jung's most famous ideas. The shadow is the part of yourself that you repress, deny, or project onto others. It often carries qualities you dislike, fear, or cannot accept. For many, the shadow also contains the fear of the present. We may prefer the fantasy of tomorrow's success because it spares us from facing today's inadequacies. We may idealize the past because it spares us from acknowledging that we feel lost right now. But the shadow doesn't disappear by avoidance. It waits. It influences. It shapes the life we live unconsciously. To bring the shadow into awareness is to meet ourselves in this moment, not some imagined version of ourselves later or earlier. It is to say, here I am, now with all my contradictions, and this is the ground on which I must build. Jung also spoke often of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that reveal a hidden order between inner and outer reality. Synchronicity can only be noticed when you're present. If you're buried in past regrets or future fears, you miss the subtle connections life is offering in real time. Have you ever noticed how opportunities, insights, or relationships show up just when you're ready to see them? That readiness doesn't come from waiting. It comes from awareness, from being tuned into what's happening now. Jung believed synchronicity was a way the unconscious communicates with us through the fabric of reality, guiding us toward individuation. But it only becomes visible if we're actually living in the present, open, and attentive. The best time of your life is now, because now is where the universe speaks to you. There's also a deeper philosophical layer to Jung's view. He studied not only psychology but also alchemy, mythology, and Eastern philosophy. In these traditions, the present is sacred. In alchemy, the transformation of base material into gold symbolized the transformation of the soul in real time, not in a future ideal state, but through the present struggles of life. In many Eastern teachings, the now is the eternal, the timeless dimension where truth resides. Jung recognized that the psyche thrives not in abstract past or future, but in the living present, where unconscious contents emerge, where healing happens, where creativity is born. To ignore the now is to miss the very stage on which your own transformation is meant to unfold. Imagine for a moment that your life is a book. Each page represents a day. If you keep rereading old chapters, or trying to skip ahead to chapters that aren't written yet, you miss the page you're actually on. And the story only unfolds by reading the page in front of you. That's what Jung meant in his own way. The page you're on, the now, is where the narrative of your life is alive. The past pages inform it, the future pages await, but only the present is being written. If you neglect it, the story moves on without you. That's why so many people wake up years later and wonder where life went. They weren't living in the best time of their life because they thought it was elsewhere, when in truth it was right where they were all along. Living in the now does not mean ignoring the past or disregarding the future. Jung was clear that the past shapes us, that unresolved experiences in childhood form complexes in the unconscious that influence our behavior. He also knew that the future is important because it gives us direction, goals, and meaning. But both past and future must be integrated into the present. Your past must be remembered, not worshipped. Your future must be anticipated, not idolized. The key is balance. Jung believed that when you integrate your past experiences consciously, you free yourself from being unconsciously ruled by them. And when you hold a vision for the future without clinging to it, you allow yourself to grow toward it naturally. In both cases, the now is the center point, the axis where the psyche finds stability. It is the crossroads of time, and that's why it's the best time of your life. Many people resist this because the now is imperfect. It contains discomfort, loneliness, unfinished business. But Jung understood that suffering itself can be meaningful if we face it consciously. Pain in the present often carries the seed of transformation. Avoiding it only prolongs it. When Jung worked with patients, he helped them sit with their suffering, listen to their dreams, notice their projections. This wasn't about waiting for a better time, but realizing that the very moment of struggle is the doorway to growth. To live now is not to live in constant pleasure, but to live fully, which includes pain, ambiguity, and uncertainty. The paradox is that when you accept this, life becomes richer, not poorer. You discover that the best time of your life is not the smoothest or easiest, but the most real. So as we move deeper into this journey, remember the points we're exploring together. How the unconscious traps us in time illusions, why the shadow resists the present, how synchronicity awakens us to the meaning of now, why individuation requires presence, and how suffering itself can reveal the richness of life when faced directly. Jung's psychology is not about escaping reality, but embracing it, and reality is only ever available in the moment you're living. The best time of your life is not later. It is now, and once you begin to grasp that, the way you see yourself, others, and the world will change profoundly. When you begin to take Jung's perspective seriously, something subtle but powerful happens in your awareness. You start to notice how much of your life has been spent elsewhere. Maybe you catch yourself replaying old arguments, wishing you had said something differently. Maybe you notice how often you imagine conversations in the future that haven't happened yet, preparing for scenarios that may never come. And then it strikes you. All this time life has been moving, breathing, unfolding around you, and you weren't really there. Jung would say this is the great tragedy of modern humanity. We are rarely present. But it is also the great opportunity, because once you see it, you can begin to return. The act of returning to now is the beginning of individuation. It is not an idea, but an experience, a practice, a way of being. Think about dreams, one of Jung's favorite doors into the unconscious. Dreams happen when the body sleeps, but the psyche continues to create. A dream is not about yesterday or tomorrow. It is happening now, an immediate symbolic message from the unconscious about your current state of being. People often treat dreams as puzzles to decode for future predictions, but Jung insisted they were mirrors of the present. They reveal what your unconscious is wrestling with in this moment. This is why Jung placed such importance on them. To pay attention to your dreams is to anchor yourself in the living dialogue of your psyche right now. And when you do, you discover how much wisdom is already here, waiting for you to notice. The same is true in relationships. How often do we enter relationships with an image of what the other person used to be, or what we hope they will become? We compare our partner to their past self or burden them with expectations of a future self. In doing so, we rarely meet the person in front of us. Jung emphasized that true connection happens when we see each other as we are, not as we imagine each other to be. That requires presence. It means listening without rehearsing your reply, looking without projecting an image, loving without demanding a guarantee. When you live this way, relationships deepen. They become encounters between two whole beings in the moment, not contracts based on illusions. The best time of your life is now, and that includes the best time in love, because love is only alive in the present exchange of being. Many people hesitate here, because they worry that living in the now means giving up ambition, goals, or responsibility. But Jung's vision was not passive. To live in the present is not to stop planning. It is to stop living only in the plan. It means you bring your full presence to the steps you're taking today instead of postponing life until the destination is reached. Imagine climbing a mountain. If you only think about the peak, you may miss the beauty of the trail, the lessons of the obstacles, the joy of the climb itself. You might even reach the top and find it anticlimactic, because the meaning was not only in the summit, but in every step. Living now means giving attention to the step under your foot, while still knowing the peak is there. It's a balance of vision and presence, and it makes every moment of the journey the best time, not just the imagined end. There is also the question of mortality. Jung was no stranger to death. He had his own near-death experience in 1944, when he was gravely ill and had visions of leaving his body and approaching a cosmic temple. Though he recovered, the experience changed him. He realized more deeply than ever that life is fragile and finite, and that waiting for some future ideal is a dangerous illusion. Death makes now precious. Every moment is unrepeatable. Jung often reminded his patients that awareness of death can awaken us to life, not in a morbid sense, but as a reminder of urgency. The best time of your life is not someday, because someday is never promised. It is now, while you are breathing, while your heart is beating, while you are capable of awareness. Once you feel this truth, even ordinary moments shine with significance. Suffering, too, takes on a different meaning in this light. When you're waiting for a better time, suffering feels like an interruption, a delay, a punishment. But when you embrace the now, suffering becomes part of the story itself, an essential ingredient of transformation. Jung knew that the psyche grows through confrontation with difficulty. He often said that people don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That darkness is often experienced as suffering. If you treat suffering as something to escape until a better time arrives, you miss its gift. But if you face it now, you discover its hidden wisdom. Pain teaches resilience. Grief teaches love. Failure teaches humility. These lessons only reveal themselves when you stop running and start living in the very moment of suffering itself. Then, even hardship becomes part of the best time of your life, because it makes you more whole. Think of the seasons of life: childhood, youth, middle age, old age. Each has its own character. Jung observed that people often get stuck when they cling to one stage and resist the transition to the next. For example, he wrote about the midlife crisis, a point where many people feel empty because the strategies of youth, chasing success, building identity, no longer satisfy. At that moment, some try to live as if they were still young. Others postpone meaning by imagining it will come in retirement. Jung argued that the crisis is resolved not by escaping, but by embracing the new stage of life now, with its new tasks, new questions, new possibilities. To cling to youth or postpone to old age is to miss the richness of midlife itself. The same is true at every stage. The child who wishes to be grown, the adult who wishes to be young again, both miss their best time, which is now. Jung would say, honor the stage you are in, because it has its own unique purpose in your individuation. Another dimension is creativity. Jung himself was a prolific writer, painter, and builder. He understood that creativity flows when you're immersed in the present act of creation. Writers know this when they find themselves in the zone, where time disappears and the words come alive on the page. Musicians know it when they lose themselves in a performance. Artists know it when the brush seems to move on its own. These states are only possible when you stop worrying about how the work will be received in the future or comparing it to what you did in the past. Creativity demands presence. Jung encouraged people to create not for achievement, but for self-expression, for dialogue with the unconscious. When you do this, the act itself becomes the reward. The best time of your life is now, in the flow of creation, where the unconscious speaks through you into the world. Even spirituality, which Jung explored deeply through his studies of religion and myth, is anchored in the now. He saw that every religious tradition at its core points people back to the present moment. Prayer, meditation, ritual, all are designed to bring you into awareness of the sacred here and now. Jung didn't argue for one religion over another. Instead, he noticed the common thread. The divine is encountered not in some abstract future heaven or some nostalgic paradise lost, but in the immediacy of experience. If you are waiting for spiritual awakening as a future event, you miss that awakening begins the moment you become conscious of yourself as you are. For Jung, the soul is not a distant promise. It is present in your dreams, your symbols, your relationships, your struggles, your joys. To live now is to live spiritually, because it means living with awareness of the soul at work in your life. Some people resist this because they feel unprepared. They tell themselves, "I'll start living once I'm healed, once I'm confident, once I've figured things out." But Jung would remind us that healing and confidence and clarity come through the process of living, not before it. You don't need to be perfect to live now. You need to be present. The work of individuation is not about waiting until you've mastered yourself. It's about meeting yourself where you are. If you wait until you feel ready, you will wait forever. Readiness is a myth. Presence is reality. The best time of your life is not after you've solved everything. It is while you are solving, while you are learning, while you are growing. Jung saw that life itself is the teacher, and the classroom is always now. Perhaps one of the most liberating truths Jung offered is that the unconscious is always working in the present, regardless of what you think about the past or future. Your complexes, your dreams, your projections, your archetypes, they are active now. You can ignore them, but they won't wait for you. They shape your relationships, your choices, your moods in the present moment. The unconscious is not concerned with your imagined timeline. It demands attention now. This means that the best time to do the work of self-discovery is not later, when you feel more prepared, but now, because now is when the unconscious is alive in you. Every delay is just another way of resisting the psyche's call. Jung knew that the cost of delay is stagnation, but the reward of presence is transformation. This is why Jung often spoke about symbols and myth as living realities. Myths are not ancient stories trapped in the past. They are archetypal dramas playing out now in your psyche. When you read about the hero's journey, the descent into the underworld, the union of opposites, these are not distant tales, but reflections of your current psychological life. You are living these myths now, whether you recognize it or not. The hero's call is the present challenge you face. The underworld is the shadow you resist today. The union of opposites is the integration you're being invited to in this moment. To treat myths as historical curiosities is to miss their power. They are alive now, guiding you if you listen. And if you listen, you begin to see why Jung insisted that the present is the stage of your individuation. The best time of your life is now, because the archetypes are alive now, not someday. When you begin to understand that every archetypal pattern, every shadow impulse, every dream symbol is active right now, the way you live changes. Instead of thinking of your life as something that will begin when conditions improve, you recognize that it has already begun and is already asking for your participation. Jung believed that ignoring the call of the unconscious is what creates neurosis. People suffer not because life is inherently meaningless, but because they refuse to meet the meaning unfolding in their present circumstances. They keep imagining salvation in another time, another place, another version of themselves, while their psyche keeps speaking in the only language it knows, the immediacy of now. This is why Jung insisted that the real adventure of life begins when you stop postponing and start listening. Think about how often people postpone joy. They say, "I'll be happy when I graduate, when I get married, when I retire." Yet when those milestones arrive, the joy is fleeting because the habit of postponement remains. They quickly shift to the next condition, the next, someday. Jung saw that this cycle is rooted in unconscious projections. We project parts of ourselves into imagined futures, chasing them endlessly. But wholeness is not found in chasing. It's found in reclaiming those projections, recognizing that what you seek out there is actually available in here, now. If you long for love, begin by meeting yourself fully in this moment. If you long for meaning, notice how your life already carries symbolic significance. If you long for freedom, ask whether you are free enough to be present with yourself as you are. These are not abstract questions. They are invitations to live now. This is why Jung valued moments of crisis so much. A crisis forces you into the present. When illness strikes, when a relationship breaks, when a career ends, suddenly the illusions of tomorrow collapse, and you are confronted with the raw reality of today. Jung never minimized the pain of crisis, but he saw in it a hidden opportunity. It is in crisis that the unconscious often reveals itself most vividly through dreams, synchronicities, or intense emotions. Crisis reminds us that we cannot live on autopilot, drifting between nostalgia and anticipation. We must face what is, and in that confrontation, we often discover new depths of the self. The best time of your life is not the time without crisis. It is the time when you awaken to yourself, even if it happens through crisis. That awakening can only occur in the now. Jung also understood that culture plays a role in our difficulty with presence. Modern society glorifies speed, productivity, and future goals. From an early age, we are trained to think of life as preparation for later. Childhood is preparation for school. School is preparation for work. Work is preparation for retirement. At no stage are we told that life itself is happening now. Jung resisted this cultural narrative, urging people to see that individuation is not a future achievement, but a present unfolding. The danger of treating life as preparation is that you never arrive. You spend decades preparing, only to discover at the end that you never lived. Jung's message cuts through this illusion. You don't need to wait. You are already here. Life is already happening. The best time of your life is not later. It is this moment, which you can either miss or embrace. One of the ways Jung invited people to embrace the now was through active imagination. This was a technique where you consciously enter into dialogue with figures from your unconscious, often drawn from dreams or fantasies. You might imagine sitting across from a symbolic figure and asking them questions, listening to their replies. This practice is not about escaping into fantasy, but about meeting your unconscious in the present. Active imagination requires your presence, your attention, your willingness to engage with what is arising now in your psyche. Many of Jung's most profound insights came from his own use of this method. Recorded in his famous Red Book, he discovered that the unconscious is alive, speaking, guiding, but we can only hear it if we are present. Active imagination demonstrates in practice what Jung believed in theory. The psyche's wisdom is available now, not at some future point when you think you'll be ready. Consider also the role of projection. Jung explained that we often project disowned parts of ourselves onto others, seeing in them what we cannot accept in ourselves. This process is constant and largely unconscious. But if you cultivate presence, you begin to notice it as it happens. Maybe you feel irritation towards someone and realize it mirrors a trait you repress in yourself. Maybe you idealize someone and realize you've projected your own potential onto them. These recognitions only occur in the now, in the living encounter. If you're lost in thoughts of the past or dreams of the future, you miss these subtle but transformative insights. Presence allows you to reclaim projections, integrate your shadow, and grow in self-awareness. Every encounter becomes a chance for individuation, but only if you are present enough to see it. Again, the best time of your life is now, because now is where your psyche reveals itself through others. There is also the dimension of meaning. Jung argued that meaning is essential for psychological health. People can endure great suffering if they find meaning in it, but they collapse under even small discomforts if they see life as meaningless. Where is meaning found? Not in abstract theories or distant promises, but in the lived experience of now. Meaning emerges when you recognize that your struggles, your dreams, your relationships, your choices are part of a larger pattern unfolding in your life at this moment. Jung often spoke of the archetype of the self, the central organizing principle of the psyche that draws us toward wholeness. The self is not a distant goal, but an active presence, guiding you here and now through symbols, synchronicities, and inner promptings. To live now is to participate in the unfolding of the self, to recognize meaning as it arises in real time. This makes even ordinary days extraordinary, because they are charged with the presence of the self at work. Another subtle but important aspect of Jung's thought is the integration of opposites. He believed the psyche seeks balance between opposing forces, conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, light and shadow, order and chaos. These opposites often create tension, which we may want to resolve quickly. But Jung insisted that growth comes not from eliminating tension, but from holding it consciously in the present. This is not easy. It requires patience, presence, and the willingness to endure ambiguity. Yet it is in this tension of opposites, held now, that transformation occurs. If you avoid it by retreating into the past or escaping into the future, the potential is lost. But if you face it, live it, breathe it now, something new emerges, the transcendent function, a higher synthesis that leads to individuation. Once again, the best time of your life is now, because now is where the tension lives and where the transformation can happen. Let's return to the idea of synchronicity. Many people treat coincidences as meaningless accidents, but Jung saw them as messages from the deeper order of reality. A meaningful coincidence might connect your inner state with an outer event in a way that feels uncanny. These experiences remind us that life is not random, but infused with meaning. But synchronicity is subtle. It requires presence to perceive. If you're distracted by regret or consumed by worry, you'll miss the signs. Jung believed that synchronicities guide us toward individuation, offering reassurance, direction, or confirmation when we need it. They remind us that the unconscious is not confined to our minds, but interwoven with the world itself. When you notice them, life feels less mechanical and more alive. This aliveness is only available in the now. That's why so many people miss synchronicities. They're not present enough to see the patterns. But when you cultivate presence, you discover that the best time of your life is now, because now is when life speaks to you. At this point, it's important to address the resistance many people feel. They say, "But my present isn't good. I'm lonely. I'm struggling. I'm not where I want to be." Jung would not dismiss these feelings. He would invite you to take them seriously, not as reasons to escape the present, but as invitations to engage with it more deeply. Loneliness, for example, can reveal your need for deeper connection with yourself, not just others. Struggle can reveal capacities you didn't know you had. Not being where you want to be can reveal unconscious assumptions about success and fulfillment. The present moment is not always comfortable, but it is always alive with meaning. To reject it is to reject the very material your soul is trying to work with. Jung believed that the psyche knows what it needs for growth, and it brings that material into your life now. If you resist it, you delay growth. If you embrace it, you accelerate individuation. The best time of your life is now, even if it feels imperfect, because imperfection itself is the raw material of transformation. This is why Jung admired the wisdom of myths and religions that emphasized cycles of death and rebirth. These stories remind us that life is not linear progress toward a distant goal, but a series of transformations happening now. Each moment of difficulty contains a seed of renewal, but only if you face it. Each ending contains a beginning, but only if you are present enough to notice it. If you're always waiting for the future to deliver a perfect state, you miss the rebirths happening around you every day. Jung would encourage you to see your current struggles, joys, and questions as part of this cycle. You are always dying to one form and being reborn into another, here and now. This rhythm is not confined to some future enlightenment. It is the heartbeat of life itself, happening in this moment. To live now is to participate consciously in that rhythm, and that is why it is the best time of your life. As we arrive deeper into Jung's vision, a final realization emerges. Living in the now is not just a psychological strategy. It is a way of becoming whole, of aligning your inner life with the rhythm of existence itself. You begin to see that the past and future are not enemies of the present, but companions, woven into it. The past provides memory, lessons, and roots. The future provides vision, direction, and possibility. But the present is the living thread that ties them together, the place where the lessons of the past can be applied and where the vision of the future can be shaped. Without presence, both past and future collapse into illusions. With presence, they find their rightful place. Jung's psychology teaches us that the now is not a denial of time, but its fulfillment. The best time of your life is now, because now is where all of time converges. It is here, in the lived moment, that transformation is possible. Consider again the shadow, that hidden part of yourself, carrying everything you avoid or deny. The shadow cannot be integrated tomorrow. It confronts you now, in the irritation you feel toward a colleague, in the envy you feel scrolling through social media, in the shame that rises unexpectedly in your chest. These moments are invitations to presence. You could ignore them, push them into the unconscious, and wait for another time to deal with them. But each avoidance strengthens the shadow's grip. Integration happens only when you face these experiences as they arise, here and now, with honesty and compassion. This is the work of individuation, and it is always happening in the immediacy of life. The best time to become who you truly are is not later. It is now, in the raw material of the moment. Jung also recognized the danger of idealizing the future self. Many people carry an image of who they believe they must become in order to be acceptable, successful, admired, enlightened. They chase this image endlessly, believing that once they reach it, life will finally begin. But Jung saw that this is another trick of the psyche, another projection of the self into the future. The self, as the guiding principle of wholeness, is not a distant ideal but an active presence. It is calling you toward growth here and now. The image of perfection you chase may only serve to distance you from the wholeness available in this moment. Jung would tell you, stop trying to become your ideal self in the future. Begin becoming yourself in the present. The paradox is that this is how you move closer to the self, by embodying it now imperfectly in your actual life. Relationships illustrate this beautifully. Imagine two people constantly waiting for a better time to connect. They tell themselves they'll really talk once things calm down, once the stress passes, once the timing is right. Years go by, and the conversation never happens. Jung would say that the relationship has been sacrificed to the illusion of later. True intimacy requires presence. It requires showing up now, even if conditions aren't perfect. It requires vulnerability in the moment, honesty in the moment, love in the moment. The best time to love is not later when everything is easy, but now when it is real. Jung's understanding of projection also reminds us that the people in our lives are mirrors of our unconscious. If we avoid them by waiting for a better time, we miss the chance to see ourselves reflected and to grow. The best time of your life, including the best time in your relationships, is now. This brings us to a deeper paradox. The present is eternal. Jung saw that the psyche is not bound by linear time in the way we imagine. Dreams often mix past, present, and future in symbolic images. Synchronicities blur the line between inner and outer. Archetypes arise in timeless patterns that repeat across generations. To live in the now is not to confine yourself to a fleeting instant, but to step into a timeless dimension of being. When you are fully present, you touch something eternal. The self, the archetypal ground of existence, the mystery of being itself. This is why so many spiritual traditions describe the present as sacred. Jung, though a psychologist, understood this deeply. He saw that when you awaken to now, you awaken to eternity. The best time of your life is now, because now is the doorway to the timeless. But how do you practice this in daily life? Jung was not a teacher of techniques in the way modern self-help often is, but his work offers guidance. Pay attention to your dreams, because they speak of your current psychological state. Notice your projections, because they reveal what your unconscious is asking you to face now. Engage with active imagination, because it anchors you in dialogue with the living unconscious. Attend to synchronicities, because they show you the meaning at work in your present circumstances. Face your suffering, because it is the very material of your growth today. In short, bring awareness to what is happening in you and around you right now. This is the path to individuation. It doesn't require waiting for a better time. It requires noticing that the better time is already here, disguised as your current experience. It may help to think of presence as a muscle. At first, it feels weak, and the pull of past and future is strong. You may find yourself drifting into regret or worry, realizing only later that you miss the present. That's normal. Jung would remind us that growth is gradual, that the unconscious reveals itself in stages. Each time you return to now, you strengthen the muscle. Each time you choose to live rather than postpone, you deepen your individuation. Over time, presence becomes more natural, more steady. You begin to see that the now has always been here, waiting for you to arrive. And when you do, you realize that it was not about achieving perfection, but about participating in life as it is. The best time of your life was never hidden. It was waiting in the simple act of being here. There is also liberation in realizing that you cannot miss your life. Even if you've spent years in regret or anticipation, the moment you awaken to now, you are home. Jung would say that the psyche is patient. It holds the material of your growth until you are ready to face it. The unconscious does not abandon you. The self continues to call, whether you listen or not. This means it is never too late. The best time of your life is now, even if now comes later than you wished. The past is not wasted, because it has prepared you for this awakening. The future is not lost, because it will flow from the presence you cultivate today. There is only this moment, and in this moment, life is waiting for you. As you reflect on this, consider how different your life might feel if you truly embraced this truth. What if you stopped postponing joy until circumstances align? What if you stopped clinging to an idealized past? What if you decided that this moment, imperfect as it is your best time? How would you treat yourself differently? How would you treat others? How would you experience the world around you? Jung believed that such a shift could transform not only individuals, but culture itself. A society of present, conscious individuals would not be driven by endless consumption, fear, or nostalgia. It would be rooted in meaning, creativity, and authentic connection. Perhaps the best contribution you can make to the world is to live now fully and consciously, showing others by your example that the best time of life is not a fantasy, but a reality already here. And so we return to where we began. The best time of your life is not waiting for you somewhere else. It is not hidden in the past you can't relive, nor in the future you can't control. It is here, in the breath you are taking, in the words you are hearing, in the life you are living. Carl Jung's psychology points us again and again to this truth. Individuation, integration, meaning, love, transformation, all happen in the now. To postpone is to resist your own soul. To embrace the now is to awaken to yourself. This awakening is not dramatic. It is quiet, simple, and immediate. It begins the moment you say yes to your life as it is, right now. So let me leave you with this thought. Your best time is not behind you. It is not ahead of you. It is here. The question is not when your life will begin. It already has. The question is whether you will show up for it. Jung's invitation is clear. Awaken, not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Because now is the only time you can live, the only time you can love, the only time you can become whole. And once you see this, you will never again wonder when the best time of your life is. You will know. It is this moment. It is always this moment.